Hi. Have you ever known the real story of Cinderella? I'm sure you don't. Here it is. Most 21st century children know the Disney version of Cinderella. A kind, lovely girl gets mistreated by an evil stepmother and two ugly stepsisters, manages to go to a royal ball with some magical help, meets the prince, and they fall in love. The magic wears off at midnight and, in her rush to flee, she leaves behind a shoe. The prince looks for the shoe's owner, finds Cinderella, marries her, and they live happily ever after. This plot follows that of Charles Perrault's Cinderella, the version catapulted to fame by Walt Disney's animated film, Cinderella. But this version sprung later among hundreds of Cinderella-type tales that abound across culture around the world. In her 1892 Cinderella, Marion Rolfe Cox compiled 345 variants of the nearly archetypal story and classified them into three main categories. The Cinderella category, which includes the Perrault version, involves an ill-treated heroine later rescued from her plight by means of a shoe. The Catskin category features a heroine fleeing from an unnatural reed, possibly incestuous father, and finding happiness in a foreign land. The Cap-o'-Rushes variants involve a heroine outcast in the style of William Shakespeare's King Lear. Later works by Anna Birgitta Ruth, Auntie Arne, and Stith Thompson produced more defined classifications using over 700 samples that made Cox's categories seem like generic groupings. With mounting research, the modern Cinderella story seems further and further away from its predecessors. Apart from some violence in well-known variants, such as Giambattista Basile's La Gatta Cenerentola and the Grimm brothers' Aschenputtel, there are also Cinderella-type lore drawn from older and less-known sources. These starkly different versions contain a darkness and violence the superfluous reader would not expect to find: murder, mutilation, cannibalism, and incest. In modern retellings, the utmost act of evil is Cinderella's mistreatment, stepmother forbidding her from going to the ball, the load of household chores fit for a slave, getting locked in the attic when the king's messenger comes to find the owner of the glass slipper. In certain accounts, however, the Cinderella figure is not always the clear-cut protagonist. In Giambattista Basile's La Gatta Cenerentola, Zazzala kills her stepmother at the behest of the governess by shutting the lid of a chest on her stepmother's neck, breaking it instantly. In A Tibetan Tale, the Cinderella figure kills her own mother by severing her breasts, and later orders the burning and decapitation of the ogress who takes her place as queen. In an Icelandic version, the evil stepmother is an ogress who cuts off her ogress daughter's toes and heels so she could fit her foot in the shoe. The prince puts the impostor on his ship and begins to sail for his homeland. Then, two birds alight on the ship and sing a little rhyme. At the prow sits hewn heel. Full is her shoe with blood. At home sits Mjadvaig in her golden bower. Turn back, king's son. Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm tell a story that is strikingly similar to the Icelandic version. In Aschenputtel, the stepmother orders one daughter to cut off her toe and the other to cut off her heel so their feet can fit into the shoe. In each case, when the prince is about to take away a daughter to his palace, two birds fly close to his horse and sing a little rhyme. Look, look. There's blood in the shoe. The shoe's too small. The right bride's still at home. A particularly interesting Cinderella reference is actually historical and refers to Queen Friedgund, a once living example of the wicked stepmother who, driven by jealousy, plots to crush her daughter's neck with a treasure chest. It is said that the true numbers of the murders and tortures ordered by the queen may never be known. Less common than murder and mutilation, but definitely a theme in many Cinderella-type tales, is cannibalism. In the previously mentioned Tibetan tale, when the girl reports to the ogresses that she had killed her own mother on their orders, the ogresses promptly ate the meat and gnawed the bones. The tale goes on to say that the girl was given tasteless gruel instead of being allowed to partake in the meal, as if this was a regrettable thing. In two Icelandic accounts, where the ogress daughter's foot is mutilated, the prince finds out that he has been deceived, kills the impostor and makes porridge out of her. In another version, the prince salts down the ogress daughter and places her flesh in 12 barrels. In both cases, the prince ends up feeding the ogress mother with her daughter's remains. Incestuous intent is ingredient in many Cinderella variants. The catskin category features a girl fleeing from a father who seeks from her a romantic relationship or marriage. Among Cox's collection is the princess who would not marry her father. There is also Anderox the king who wished to marry his daughter, found in J.F. Campbell's popular Tales of the West Highlands. In the tale, a king who lost his wife to an illness refuses to marry anyone who does not fit in his wife's old dresses. His own daughter grows up, tries on the dresses and finds that she fits in them perfectly, and the king demands her hand in marriage. The story of Hanshi, a Cinderella-type tale heard in Kittur, a village in North Karnataka, India, tells of a brother who falls in love with his sister upon seeing her gold, flowing hair, and asks to marry her. It only takes a light rippling of the surface to discover that the tale of Cinderella is its own field of study. With all the elements of violence and social taboo in many variants, some might say it's a lucky product of natural selection that Cinderella did not emerge as a tale of horror. For many 21st century children, Walt Disney's depiction of Cinderella may be the only version they will ever know in their entire lives. They will never know of the Native American soot face or the Icelandic Njadve. The darker versions may never find their way into a 4-year-old girl's bedtime stories. And perhaps it is best that way, to leave the fairy tale to the children and let the older 4-year-olds confront the darker, more sinister Cinderella.